Good afternoon from the west coast of America. Good evening from the people back home in England. Good morning for the people who are in Asia, Evan. And we're back. Across the pond is back after a few weeks, taking a break. A few things happening in the world of soccer god. I was available every Friday, but unfortunately, Evan wasn't. So it's all good. I can't do a show without him. It's not fair, even though there's loads of Americans waiting in line, and they'll be kept in line because Evan is, soccer knowledge, soccer god. He is the one and only that can do a show on a Friday. But how are we today, Evan? Loads bouncing around today in the last 72 hours post Fulham game. Footballer names, midfielder names. It's just being chucked at us. Links, new player links, every single hour it seems right now. Um, how are you doing today? I see you're back on doing shows. I saw you do a show yesterday. Great stuff. It's good to see you back on the scene. Your moustache is looking pristine as ever. But you look a bit glum. What's wrong? Is it because you're back with me? What's going on in the world of soccer? God, give us an insight.
Uh, it's just not typical California weather. We had such nice sunshine, typical across the pond weather, and now it's back to being another gloomy Bay Area overcast day. Sort of just mimicking typical UK weather, which is why I am not cut out for it. Thanks for making me feel very replaceable at the beginning. Apparently, there's a plethora of Americans just lining up to take my job, and yet Abby perseveres with me for reasons I'm not so
I wouldn't.
sure.
I wouldn't look as much shit that we give each other. I wouldn't swap you for the world at all. You are the one that pieces this show together. So
That's
yeah, if I
cute.
don't give you enough
Thanks.
credit, I'm giving you credit now. Anyway, let's can we move on to the show? And before we have got a special guest, by the way, people that know and people who are in the comments, Moby, the one and only, the Scouting Network, the guy that created Football Manager. He will be joining us at 1:30. He will be in the car, so he will be joining via audio. But Moby will be giving us a few insights on a couple of players that we're currently knowing. Is that yours or mine? Can you hear that interference?
It must be yours, my
It
friend.
might be mine. Might be mine. But yeah, before we get into the player links and whatnot, Evan, I do want to talk about. We're gonna give a few farewells. It feels this season, and another
Mm.
one. James Milner. It does seem as though he is going to be going to Brighton. Looks as if he's joining Brighton, and what a servant this player has been for the club. Came in the season, I think, just before Brendan got the sack, or that season that Brendan did get the sack. People were a bit skeptical, but he's provided us the experience, leadership. He's covered a whole host of positions. I remember in the 2016-2017 season, he played at left back because Moreno wasn't up to the standard that Klopp demanded. James Milner, Evan, some player, eh?
Absolutely incredible player, James Milner. Underrated, often disrespected, often the recipient of some extremely unnecessary sorts of criticism. People in the comments are saying, I can't hear the audio issue, Abby, so maybe mute your mic. Maybe that'll take care of it. But James Milner, absolutely the recipient of some unnecessary criticism. Um, just an absolute legend. And when I think of James Milner and his time at Liverpool, obviously you can go to many different places throughout the past and think of fine memories and things like that. But the part of James Milner's career at Liverpool that warms my heart, Abby, is knowing that he, despite, I don't know, you wouldn't call him a journeyman, but as a person as well traveled in the Premier League as him, he has spent a majority of his career at Liverpool. He has made over 100 more appearances for us than he did for City, his second most long-serving employer. So when so many clubs can attribute some part of their time with James Milner, Newcastle and Leeds and all those years ago, but we got the most of James Milner. Did we get him at the peak of his powers? Probably not, but absolutely. When you hear Klopp say things like success isn't possible without people like Jordan Henderson, James Milner, He's talking about some sort of intangible off the field dressing room sort of stuff. How could we question that? What position are we in to tell Klopp no? You're muted, by the way.
Evan, there's an audio issue. There is an audio issue. There's interference coming along. I don't know why. Is there audio? Oh, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad. Can you guys hear me? Can anyone hear me? Jesus Christ. We're back again, and look what happens all the time. Hear me. Can everyone hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, see, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can. Yeah, we're better now.
I've been able to hear you this entire time.
No, there's like a raining sound. Like it's really bad. It's like really scratchy. I've just disconnected my headphones. It shouldn't happen again, people. If it happens again, let us know. Hold on, I'm just gonna.
Very strange.
Is that better?
I've been able to hear you the entire time.
It was just static for a thingy, but I've changed it now. Sorry about that, people.
Wow, strange. Okay.
We're back now. Okay, James Milner. Sorry, carry on.
Wow. Okay, that was weird. James Milner. How much of that did you guys get? Anyways, I'll just say it again because I love James Milner so much. We can all be proud of James Milner's time here at Liverpool. The most pride I can take in it is that he spent more time here at Liverpool than at any of his other clubs, and he's a well-traveled, well-journeyed professional. In the documentary about the Klopp era that'll inevitably come out at some point in the following decades, I hope there is a lengthy segment on James Milner and the impact he brought to Liverpool off the pitch and on the pitch as well. And when he looks back at his time at Liverpool, he will see, with the exception of the Europa League final, every trophy that was available to him at Liverpool, he added to the cabinet. So I think we can have few regrets about his time, and we should feel lucky that a player who was so often the unnecessary recipient of the fan base's wrath, we should feel grateful that we were able to have such a character and such a player at the club. I've yet to find anybody in the industry with anything bad to say about James Milner.
Yeah, and he won trophies wherever he went. You know, he won league titles at Man City. He won league titles at Liverpool, Champions League. He's completed the set. You know, he has completed the set. And I think you did a slide, didn't you, Evan, just to showcase his achievements. If you want to just pull that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Milner, 226 appearances for Liverpool. That's around 100 more than he did for Man City. 5 major trophies. Obviously, that's the full set. That's the Premier League, the Champions League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, and the Club World Cup as well. And he and Firmino are the, along with Henderson, original members of the 15-16 squad still at the club. So, I mean, 226 appearances is just monstrous. And people throw the word around legends a lot. I'm pretty generous with the term because people can be legends in a multitude of ways. You can score a bunch of goals, you can make a ton of appearances, you can be a wonderful person on and off the pitch. I would give it to him. I would let him have that title because if Jurgen Klopp himself says success is not possible without guys like James Milner, then I'm not sure we're really in a position to question that. So, absolutely, I would say James Milner is a Liverpool legend.
And what does Roberto De Zerbi, Evan? What do Brighton benefit from the signing of James Milner? Is it similar to like Adam Lallana being a leader in a young Brighton squad? Is it the same sort of kind of signing that they're looking for in James Milner? Like, what does he bring to the table apart from the obvious, which is the experience, the leadership skills? Anything that he can add, a wise head to the youngsters, maybe?
Well, absolutely, and especially with Brighton going for a recruitment model that's all about getting these wonder kids in from around the world. It's absolutely going to be beneficial to have the on and off the pitch experience of James Milner. Um, I mean, in that respect, you could say Brighton will benefit more than we did. So absolutely, they're getting experience in every sense of the word. And Brighton, of course, as you know, Abby, and as the rest of us know, um, they're so often recruiting these wonder kids out of South America. Um, and most of these kids coming from South America speak Spanish. James Milner is very fluent, so not that's going to be very crucial to have this seasoned, traveled model professional helping you get to grips with the culture and the pace of the Premier League. And he's also fluently speaking the language of your homeland. So absolutely, these are all sorts of off the field intangible things that help the healthy culture of a football club. And it's no mystery why Jurgen Klopp kept him around for so long.
Yeah, and he will lead by example when he does leave. And I just think it's the array of positions that he's covered, for both Manchester City, for Liverpool. And I hate that word, like he was a versatile player. I think he is definitely a legend. And he was a player that did the job very well wherever Klopp, stuck him, whether it was, three-quarters of a season in 2016-2017 season where he played left back, whether it was a right back at times covering for Trent, or whether it was in a midfield three. I'll never forget the Barcelona 4-0 at Anfield. He just put in a absolute shift. We were missing some big guns. Salah was missing, Bobby was missing, but James Milner alongside, Jordan Henderson, Gini Wijnaldum and Shaqiri's and everyone, they all played a part in probably is the game of the decade still for me. It was just an incredible game. So no, he's won it all, and it will be some send off for him alongside Bobby Firmino and maybe a few others. But no, he definitely deserves his accolades and praise as well. Moving swiftly on, Mr.
Quickly,
Sorry,
Avi. Just last question. I'll pose it to you.
yeah.
Who's vice captain now? Is it Virgil van Dijk?
Who's going to
Tough
be
one, huh?
who's going to be club captain next season? Who's going to be start? I don't think Jordan Henderson will start the first game of the season next season. So
Well,
it'll be
doesn't mean he won't be club captain. So I think Virgil gets the armband. He's one of the vice
yeah.
captains, right?
Yeah, and we've seen the
Yeah.
respect that Virgil shows when James
Mhm,
Milner does
mhm,
come on. And if Jordan Henderson is not starting, he will take the armband off and give it to
mhm.
James Milner as a sign of respect. And some players like don't want if Virgil starts the game, usually the player that's coming on, who's the elder statesman,
Yeah,
doesn't want the armband, but that's the respect that he commands.
when Milner isn't on the pitch and Henderson leaves it's usually Virgil who gets the armband passed to him. So yes, then I'd imagine Virgil is now senior vice captain. I don't know how you want to put it,
I'm
but
going to come back to a question for you now because Ben's put up a
okay.
great point, and Virgil's been sort of slated in recent times by sort of Marco van Basten, Ruud Gullit about his leadership skills. He's not vocal enough. Is Virgil van Dijk a captain for you, Evan? Do you
Virgil
listen
van
to
Dijk.
comments from professionals, or do you think that he's fine, or could he be more vocal? What's your opinion on this?
I mean, all I see Van Dijk doing is yelling at his teammates. I think he does plenty of talking. I think we have lots of candidates for vice captains. Leadership is not just screaming at people. Leadership is an example you set off the pitch, like James Milner was. First one at training, last one to leave type vibe. Leadership is how you take care of your body and your mind away from the team. We see Salah, he's dieting year round, even when he's away from Liverpool. So yeah, leadership comes in all shapes and sizes, and I think Van Dijk has a few of those qualities that could make him an easy candidate for any sort of captaincy role. So
Great stuff. We've got a super chat that's coming from Ash, one of the regulars on the in the comments. So thank you for the super chat. Millie set the standards. No dickheads allowed in the dressing room. Ice cold from the penalty spot, and was a free transfer. Good luck, Millie. Job done. And I can't say it better, Evan. He's respected by his peers. He's respected by managers. He has set the tone. He has set the standard alongside the likes of Jordan Henderson. He beats everyone in the bleep tests when they report back for preseason. He's a teetotal. He only drinks his Ribena. So no, he's definitely set the standard, and it'll be he's going to a club where he can still offer 2 years, I reckon, at Brighton. He's going to a very well structured run club, similar to the way we were run. So it's a great move for him. Gets to see a bit of the seaside in Brighton. But the weather is the same. It's still in England, so yeah.
Is it still just like overcast but on the beach?
It's just a beach area. They do great fish and chips, by the way, in Brighton.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
A great nightlife too, Evan. When we go to England, I'll take you out for a night out.
I ain't going anywhere with you. Awesome says Van Dijk not being vocal is a myth. He's the man you hear most in that back line. So nice to hear some match-going fans dispelling the myth. I mean, just through the broadcast, Avy, you can see Van Dijk opening his mouth all the time. Yeah. But yeah, right into our next segment. I believe we have to touch on another player who's not leaving, but has been instrumental in our phantom push for top 4 lately. Is it on? Is it not? Of course, we're talking about Diogo Jota, the Iceman. 39 goals for Liverpool. Avy went to the Liberty.
Wait. Hold on. Before you start rambling on like you usually do, and you ramble on too much sometimes. The Iceman, is that a nickname given by you, or is that his actual?
No, definitely not by me. I've seen other sort of cool hip Liverpool fans with bigger followings than me.
I thought the ego that you carry with yourself, I thought you might have given that to himself. But hey,
the ego I carry. If we want to talk about delusions of grandeur, you could do a seminar. But 39 goals. You went to the liberty of finding out.
I did.
Just sort of which parts of the body they're coming off of. 10 with the head, 12 with the left peg, 17 with the right. It's a nice dispersion, is it not? I mean, people have been calling them Robbie Fowler-esque finishes. I definitely see the Fowler comparisons in the sense that inside 18 yards, he's just absolutely lethal. He's scoring poacher goals, impressive technical finishes. And when the ball rolled to him against Spurs, Avy, was there any doubt in your mind that he, at the very least, was going to get that shot on target?
Yeah, you know what? I just felt that he was going to score. And I've had this argument on the Sunday shows as well. I've never been critical of Diogo Jota. I have said that he has taken a lot of time to get back. And I only posed a question on Twitter. I said, if there was a offer of 60, 70 million, would we entertain it as a football club if we're, wheeling and dealing this summer? And people have just thought, I wanted him sold. But a very long time ago, when he first joined the club, that first season he had where he scored 13 goals in 38 games, his finishing, it reminded me of Robbie Fowler. And I put a tweet out as well that this guy looks as if he's the second coming. He might not score, his goal to games ratio might not be as good as Robbie Fowler's, but let me tell you, Robbie Fowler, I would love to see his first 50 goals for Liverpool again. I'm pretty sure they were left foot finishes, right foot finishes, headers, goals from outside the box. Robbie Fowler was scoring goals with both feet, and he was a great header of the ball as well. Diogo Jota is like the clone. And I don't want to compare who the better is. We're in different times now. Diogo Jota has come back, and it's taken him a few weeks, maybe a month even. But ever since the goals at Leeds, he's not looked back. He's looking sharper, quicker. And he was on the peripheral again when he came off the bench against Spurs. But he gets that one chance, Evan, and he scores. And how many times have we seen that with Jota? He gets that one chance and he scores. And look, he scored 10 goals with his head, 17 from his right foot, 12 off his left foot. And I still don't know which foot of his is still stronger, because he hits the ball with power with his left, And some of his finishing with his right have been very scruffy. And I still don't know whether he's better with his left or his right, but it just seems that he's equally as good as he is with his head, with his foot. I call him a bit of an enigma because he does stay sometimes on the peripheral of a game. You know, he isn't a 90-minute explosive performance player like a Diego, like a Luis Diaz is maybe at sometimes where he's just, you know, penetrating the opposition. He's coming back with the ball. He's coming again and again and again. Jota is just a footballer that may stay silent for 85 minutes during a game, but he'll score one or two in quick succession and not look back. And we will just forget about what he's done for the past sort of 80 minutes of that game. He comes up with a goal. A very unique footballer in my in my eyes, Diego Jota Evan. And right now with this form, I wouldn't sell him at all. I wouldn't sell him at
So
all.
Avi, you're obviously much older than I am. Would you call him
Bastard.
would you call him a 90s forward? Is this the 90s number 9 that we have? Is Robbie Fowler the only comparison there, or is there a bit of Andy
No, there's-
Cole, Dwight York knocking around as well?
York was a little bit of he played a little bit deeper than with Cole, which was a great partnership as well at United. A little bit of Michael Owen in him, the way he finishes sometimes, especially the first goal against Leeds, where Curtis Jones plays him in, and that first time finish, very similar to Michael Owen. Even the Nottingham Forest, he is like a 90s striker, a fox in the box. That used to be that was a term used by Arsene Wenger, funnily enough, when he signed Francis Jeffers, because he thought Francis Jeffers would be the player that Robbie Fowler was for us or on Michael Owen. But, that was a transfer that went drastically wrong for them. Diego Jota is that his best work is done centrally. I like him in the 9 more than I do on the left or on the right. Where do you see him fitting in? A fully fit Diego Jota, a fully fit quadrant, or the 5 players that we have, like Nunez, Gakpo, Diaz, Salah, Jota, is he getting in your starting lineup first game of the season if everyone's fit?
If everyone's fit, see, it's tough because I also prefer him centrally. And right now, I think Cody Gakpo is first name on the team sheet. I think he's been so instrumental in just our sort of modest late season revival, you could say. Gakpo has just been a revelation signing of the season for me. So it's tough. What I will say about Jota, though, I think what explains that goal drought that was concerning people, is it says more about Liverpool as a collective, as a team, than it does about him, because he's the type of player, like you said, fox in a box. He's an 18-yard box player. If you're struggling to even enter the box, the opposition's box consistently and with control, then the type of players that are going to suffer are the Diogo Jotas. Those are the types of guys whose numbers are going to go down. If we're a high functioning team that has the other team pinned back against their box, like we consistently do with most teams in the league when we're playing up to our level, then absolutely you want Jota. You want Jota on the end of these crosses, these fantastic passes. You want a guy in there to finish those chances. When you're struggling in a game, when you're really when chances are hard to come by and you're like struggling to even exert pressure that you feel you should be, then I think Jota's a bit of a hindrance, or maybe not the type of player who's going to make something happen for you outside the box. So the drought says more about our struggles to flex our muscles like we should have been for most of this season. And now that we're beginning to flex our muscles again and start to look a bit more functional again, lo and behold, Diogo Jota is scoring goals again. So it's a bit of injuries, it's a bit of Liverpool, it's a bit of him, but it's tough to get into this forward line these days. I mean, these are the headaches we asked for, Avi.
I saw
It
you
wasn't so
mentioned
long.
that yesterday. It's a great headache to have too.
Yeah, it's the headaches we wanted. We signed up for this. We signed up for having to choose between Gakpo and Diaz and Jota and Darwin on any given day. The only person in that front three that doesn't really have any competition and where there's no discussion is Mohamed Salah. So on any given day, people can make an argument for any player coming in. Jota absolutely has made his case over the last few weeks or so. I think Cody Gakpo has made his case pretty much since he put the shirt on. So absolutely, Jota, well worthy of this segment today, well worthy of the praise, and the reason we are still thinking of top 4 as a mathematical possibility.
I just want to apologize to all the viewers who have had to listen to Evan. He's put a masterclass on. He's not. I'm not trying to rib you here. You've put a masterclass on it once again, Evan, with your stats and the way you talk about Jota. But it actually is Diogo Jota, not Diego. So stop calling him Diego. No. I do apologize to everyone in the comments. Scott Jones has said it twice while you were talking.
Saying Diego.
No,
I
Diogo.
say Diogo Jota.
Diogo Jota.
They're
Let's just call
talking
him
about
Jota.
you.
Jota.
They're talking about you.
No,
you say Diego. I say Diogo. Listen, folks,
sometimes
my
you should
track
just
record of
put your hands
pronouncing
up and
things
say, "I'm
versus
sorry."
Avi's track record of pronouncing things, I will go toe-to-toe in that realm any day.
A great comment by Jono. We wanted a better squad depth. We now have it. Yet fans
Shut
and
up.
some journos I'm seeing online are complaining about what do we do with Darwin. And it's fickle, isn't it? The world of social media, Evan. I've seen people this week slating Darwin Nunez, saying that, oh, he's not the fit now. Gakpo looks so much better in the 9. A waste of space, a donkey he's been called. Where 6-7 weeks ago, everyone was saying he was our best player in a very bad season. And now all of a sudden, some of those very same fans have said, we should sell him, get rid. He's not worthy of it's. Like, what do we do with this? Because it really pisses me off, right? It really does. But Darwin Nunez, Klopp has already said it's a long-term project. He needs to learn the language. He's not going to be perfect in English, within a year. It's going to take time. You can tell that the club fans, mostly fans, the match-going fans, are in love with Darwin Nunez. They chant his name, even when he is warming up, off the pitch or on the sidelines, right? We need to give him time. Evan, can you please find some reasoning of why now Darwin Nunez is the pick of the social media now and start berating him now and let's give him loads of stick for it? Why?
The winds of social media change with each passing day. We live in a culture of instant gratification. We live in a culture where people constantly need a boogeyman. They constantly need some sort of thing or entity to blame when a certain player plays, and when a certain player doesn't play, he's either a hero or a villain. There's very rarely any in between, any neutrality in which people view professional footballers. You're absolutely right. It was only a month or two ago where people saw him as a shining light in what's been a dismal season. He was our primary attacking outlet, a guy that people were falling in love with chaos ball, as they called it. But now that we have a slightly different shape and he's been out of the team, came back from international break with a cut on his foot, so he was rested. We've started to string together some wins when we needed it most. All of a sudden, he's not the flavor of the month anymore. People are fickle. This is what people were saying about Cody Gakpo when Cody Gakpo played his first 90 minutes in this highly dysfunctional Liverpool team. It's just how it is. I mean, nobody with any common sense or valid reputation is having any sleepless nights thinking about Darwin Nunez, or is viewing him with any discontent or dislike. It's a long-term project. He's a raw talent. Given the circumstances of how dysfunctional we've been as a team on and off the pitch, for him to even get to double digits in goals scored this season is an achievement in itself. So it's absolutely nothing to worry about at this point. If we become an incredible 95-point team again next season and he's playing poorly, then we can start to have some conversations about whether or not he's a good long-term fit. But to a certain extent, almost everybody gets somewhat of a free pass when we talk about their form. We've had, some of the greatest players on earth play for our football club, and they've all taken turns being poor this season, and it's because the collective has suffered. And it's a good segue into the super chat, Abby. I'll take this one. Atik, did I say that right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Atik Sadiq. Say his full name. This is why I don't give you the super chat.
Oh, Jesus. Atik Sadiq. Very cool name. I like that. Not worried about Jota or any of our forwards. Just imagine what they can do when we sort our midfield out. I'm going to expand this a little bit. Just imagine what we do when we sort our team out, because it is a midfield issue. That is the biggest hole to fill this summer, but it's also, as you can see, what's become a midfield issue is sort of spread like a virus across the team. And as it did in 2021 when we had a center back issue, that sort of knocked over a bunch of dominoes, domino effect. We became a dysfunctional team. So absolutely, we have some work to do in midfield. We have some work to do in terms of our tactics, because we're currently experimenting with the most drastic change in shape and system during the Klopp era. Darwin Nunez is not your punching bag for change during this turbulent time. So shout out to everybody who's not tweeting abuse at Darwin Nunez on Twitter. I mean, yeah, I've long story short, Avi, I have no sleepless nights over Darwin Nunez.
Great to hear, man. Great to hear. The only sleepless nights you have is when I ring you at dodgy hours during the night. Anyway, that's another
Oh
story.
no, I go to bed. I go to bed early. You're the one tweeting things at 4 a.m. You know, I'm resting.
We did promise a special guest today. It's been a bit of a struggle because the transfer fee had to be agreed, but we did that. There were no work permit issues, considering that the Canada and USA relationships aren't so great. Considering who their prime minister president is. But look, I am welcome to introduce me and Evan both are welcome to introduce the one and only Moby Huck. Everyone knows I for talent, I for South American talent, I for in general. The guy's a walking, talking, footballing encyclopedia when it comes to football. Moby, can you hear us?
Hey guys, how are you? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good. I hope that introduction was okay.
I don't know if I'm that good, but thank you. It's very kind. I'm driving right now as I'm speaking to you, so I apologize in advance if it's picking up any strange noises there, but hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
No, it's all
We
good.
can hear you. We can hear you just fine, Moby. And I want to say it's absolutely totally fine that you're in the car right now, because that's how Avi spends 90% of our time speaking to him, is him just except he's not as quiet about it, Moby. He's like eating a hamburger and driving and talking to somebody else. So you're totally fine, my friend. Don't even worry about it.
Awesome. I didn't mean to cut off any good conversations that was happening. Hopefully there were some good ones here.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about Darwin Nunez and about the and I know you're very supportive of Darwin Nunez, Moby. Just the fickle fans on Twitter who change their opinions of him week in and week out. When he doesn't score, he looks like a donkey. When he does score, he looks as if he's Mr. Chaos, and he's only going to get better. So we're just talking about the short fuse Liverpool fans, and there's plenty of them on Twitter, on social media, just slating him. But he's a player that you're prepared to give. You've got plenty of patience for, haven't you, Moby?
Yeah, like honestly, people who are slating him right now after less than a year in is gonna be miserable for the next 5 years, because he's just a year into his 6-year contract. And as someone who really has enjoyed watching him since the Peñarol days, and then obviously into the Almerias and then the Benfica days, it took him a while to adjust everywhere. It took him a while to adjust every single club that he went to, and I'm not surprised at all that he's having the same issue. But I mean, having said that, he's only 2 goals away from equaling what Luis Suarez scored in his first full season with us. So the optics of all that is just so overblown, and I think it's just this condition where people just constantly compare him to Haaland, who's having a monstrous season. But again, we have to understand the context. We're a broken team for most of the season. We hardly have any midfielders that can, move the ball around the way that Man City does. I mean, if you had a De Bruyne playing behind behind Nunez, would it be a different story? I definitely would think so. So I would say, this Alexis, hopefully upcoming transfer, if it all goes through, will be brilliant for him, because that's one more player that is going to be well linked with him, and they can communicate, obviously in Spanish, but I suspect his English is going to get much better by the time summer is done. So only big things ahead for him, for sure.
you've mentioned a name there, and it's a perfect segue to go into the next sort of topic of discussions, which is transfers, Moby. I think that's why
Yeah.
people are wanting to people are like joined us today. Usually, me and Evan only get like 40-50 watching, but today we've got 133. So please, guys, make sure
Oh,
you
nice.
like and subscribe to the channel. We will try to hope to get Moby on as often as we can. He's a very busy
Yes,
man, working with
I will
this.
try. I'll try to be here more often for you guys. So
Brilliant, brilliant. Moby, Alexis McAllister reports from South America. Reliable sources, reliable journalists. I know he's a player that you told me and Evan a couple of months back, a few months back now, saying, guys, I like the look of McAllister. Watch out for him. I think, he would fit us perfectly. And lo and behold, the club thinks so too, Moby. And it does seem, give us an insight of McAllister because you've watched him since 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Moby, when he was playing in
yeah,
Argentina.
yeah. Argentine Juniors is the name of the team that he was at. You know, I think he's a kind of player that I think a lot of players are a bit surprised that we're after because obviously in a year that we need a lot of midfielders, you think that we're gonna go after star names and everything. But I think, as always, I think the right player is more important than just brand names because we can all see how the Chelsea experiment is going. So I think, as a player like Genie that we've missed since he has left, doing all the dirty work, all the half spaces, everywhere that you don't think a player should be, you found Genie. And I think we've been wanting a player like that. And I think that's what Alexis is going to be for us. I think it's going to be a player that fills in a lot of the gaps that you don't really see on the stat sheet always, but he's just going to be that great glue for us in midfield. And it's no surprise that we're after him, and so is so many other clubs like Man City. They're putting a lot of pressure on his father to accept the figures that they're throwing around at him.
Moby, do you think that we are ahead in terms of negotiations? Like, just your thinking, like, do you think that we have sort of, we're the front runners right now for Alexis? And do you think that, what's your inkling? Do you think we get this deal over the line?
Yeah, I do think we're a front runner. We started work really early, back in February even, and his father was a guest at one of our games. If you think about a big game in February, what was the biggest game? You can figure out which game it was. And the work was presented to him at that time, really at really early stage, and I think we did our work on this really well. So I think we are the front runners. But look, the Pep Guardiola's, they have a lot of money, and sometimes, people, this might be his biggest contract he gets in his career, and I think it is because he'll be signing for till 2028. I think is the idea, and so that this is going to be the biggest contract of his life, and after that, it's just going to get smaller and smaller. So I think from a family perspective, his father Carlos is the barometer. He's the one who runs his career. He has an advisor with him, but I think he's just going to go with the biggest offer on the table. Of course, the project has to make sense, and I think we've positioned ourselves really well. Um, and I think we will hopefully win this race, but I am always leery of people like Pep when this are sniffing around and they put pressure. So I would say we'll have more clarity in the next week or so which direction it's going, but we're just waiting for them to make a decision because we have done everything on our side to position ourselves in a good place.
Great.
From a tactical standpoint, Moby, when the idea of McAllister as potentially a Liverpool player first entered the mind, that we were still obviously in our 4-3-3 traditional, what we've come to expect under Klopp. And I remember thinking, McAllister is one of the eights alongside a holding midfielder. I like that. That's interesting. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you're kind of like me. Ever since we've switched to our new system where the interior eights are so often a lot far forward, pushing up alongside the left winger and then Salah on the right. It's a bit more aggressive. We've seen that breathe some life into Curtis Jones as well. Has that increased your excitement as Alexis McAllister potentially being one of those interior eights? Do you think this new shape would be a better fit than the classic 4-3-3 would have been?
Yeah, I am like you, really excited for to see how he molds into this new formation we have. I really think that it's hard to gauge really what it's going to look like next year until we flesh out who else is joining us. And then you're
Hmm.
going to have a much better holistic view of like, are we going to get a Lavia or Ugarte, who can, you know, man the back with Trent in there or Fabinho or, whichever way we play. Is that going to give us the ability to push these guys up, because really the back is covered, between these uh, a defensive midfielder who can definitely control the back a lot more, and then all that. I mean, you automatically have the ability to push players up top. So really exciting to see
Hmm.
all the different possibilities. I think the 4-3-3 and the 3-2-2-3 is going to be interchanged based on who we play, and I think that's great because Klopp hasn't changed a lot of that in his career. So this is quite exciting in a way to have a different system, which seems to be working really well before we even add anybody. So yeah, a lot to look forward to um, the preseason.
And just coming a little bit off the McAllister talk, Moby, that's another player. Talking of the talk of the town, especially you and Evan, who has done a statistical sort of data sheet like he does for some players, and Manuel Agate, who you two have both been pressing on last couple of months too. Moby, do you feel that talks have happened with his agent? Talks have sort of started. Preliminary with sort of Sporting Lisbon over Manuel Ugarte, but could that be like a release clause issue? Like maybe it might just be a fee too much for us, and we may just look at Romeo Lavia as a backup option. Or do you feel that Ugarte and Lavia are both sort of attainable? What's your thinking?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think a lot of people were asking the same question today, and a lot of people are asking, can we not just get them both? They're both release clauses, and the short answer is yeah. I mean, we definitely can. But except I think we all have to be realistic and understand that we still have FSG and we still have a budget that we work with, and we still have limitations, and unfortunately that is just the way, that is just what we have now. So having said that, I don't think we're going to be paying release clauses for both, because if you think about it, it's $100 million that are due at one shot. Especially in the case of Ugarte, as much as I love him, as much as I really like him, and it's no secret, you guys all know, his economic rights are owned by two different clubs. Sporting owns, I think if he plays 25 minutes this week, Sporting will own officially 10% more. I think they have about 70% right now. And then the rest is owned by Famalicão, which is another club in La Liga in Portugal. So the incentive to give you a break in a release clause is really low, because they're both gonna have to agree on the fee, and they both will have to get the fee. And I don't think Famalicão is really gonna be in a mood to give us, a random club, any sort of discount. So is it a complicated operation? Yeah, slightly, because it is a 60 million outlay that you have to pay out. And if and Inacio's 40 million, that's 100 million. Now that's a big part of our budget. Do I see us doing all that? I don't know. It seems very unlikely, but you know, who would have thought we would have paid that much for Darwin last summer, right? So
And Evan, just coming on to you, I know you're a big fan of Ugarte. You don't need to tell me twice. Have you seen
Hmm.
much of Romeo Lavia? I like the player myself. I've seen more of him than I
Hmm.
have Manuel Ugarte, but Manuel Ugarte has grown on me, especially the way
Hmm.
you have said Avi, he'd fit us like a glove. Romeo Lavia, though, if he is sort of like the alternative option, slightly cheaper because Southampton are getting, they will be relegated. I do believe Man City do have a buyback, but that doesn't go into effect till 2024. Is he a player that
Hmm.
would sort of excite you too, Evan, coming in?
Absolutely. And you asked me who I've seen more of. I think it's neck and neck because I've watched a lot of Ugarte the season when I can. Um, Lavia, the window seems to be open for us to sign these players, specifically in the upcoming summer months, and it's a window you would imagine would be shut this time next year, as you say. Um, City's buyback option will kick in next summer. Other clubs could get interested. You can imagine that if Ugarte's
relatively modest release clause of I think about around 53 million isn't activated by a club this summer, it'll almost certainly be raised with a new contract that he could potentially sign. So clock's ticking. If we're going to get either of these two players, it absolutely has to be this summer. It's not like potentially a Jude situation where you just keep waiting year after year. I would be happy with either, and I could definitely see the logic behind signing either. And I can definitely see the logic behind not being able to sign both. In a summer where we have to spread our money out responsibly and efficiently. Two release clauses, a bit tough. That's a lot of upfront money. Though with Lavia, you can look towards him counting as a homegrown option, I believe, in the next 12 months as well. Or he would have to get a bit older. Not immediately,
Yeah.
I gather.
22, unfortunately. I get confused as well, but it is 22, and he would have to have played 3 years of professional football. I think he has played like 2 years,
21.
but he's 19, I think, at the moment, Romeo Lavia. But
Eventually, yeah. Down the line, he could count as a homegrown option. Whether we're seeing that as an imperative thing to consider right now, probably not. I'm not quite sure, but both players excite me. And Southampton, such a talent factory. I know he's only just coming from City and prior to that Anderlecht, but Southampton as good at identifying talent as they are generating it out of their own academies. And Ugarte, the multi-club ownership thing is a bit strange. I wonder, and Moby, feel free to correct me. I wonder if multi-club ownership might be a little more common in the modern game than most people realize, and perhaps it might be a reason we haven't gone down the direct line to South America more often in the FSG era. But if I had to choose, Avy, you absolutely know where my loyalties lie in this debate. Though I'm certainly not going to hang my head if it ends up being Romeo Lavia, who I think has a lot of similar qualities.
Yeah, I've just got three super chats. I've just got to get through because there is a question for Moby. One was a super chat. Thank you, Mohammed Hussein, for the super chat. Let me know what your message was because I'm pretty sure when you send a super chat, you want to put a message up. Put a message, just a normal message, and I'll put it up on here. But thank you for the super chat.
A man of few words. A man of few words, Avy.
This is actual Moby's personal friend from the UK. It's Billy Moby. He said, big up Moby, my fan from Canada. Miss you, cuz. MBA, aka Billy, ain't forgot about you, bruv. These man don't know. Avy, I see you too. Guan, Evan, big up. And then I've got a question from Ash, who has sent us another super chat. Thank you, Ash. Question for Moby. If Mac is the first, if there's two more that would come in, who would you like for sensible fees, Moby?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. The Lavia question is really interesting. They will definitely sell. I think that's the one that'll generate Southampton the most amount of money. I think that's the one that they know it's gonna be going. The problem with Lavia is that if we don't get Ugarte, I would love for him to come in. I've liked him a lot. Excuse me, since the Anderlecht days. He was a free agent actually, and I was really hoping we can sign him on a free. But Man City won that race. One of the things I liked about him a lot is because he used to play as a center back as well as a defensive midfielder, so he was very versatile. But this versatility and this talent is now, has a price tag that's around 50 million pounds, and that's what Chelsea offered to them the last day of the transfer window, and Southampton turned them down. So the question is it going to be 20? Is it going to be 50 million this window, or is that going to go down because of relegation? Because his contract also includes a 20% sell-on fee that Man City gets. So Southampton is not going to sell you a player for less because they have to pay out Man City as well. So a lot of question marks at that price tag. If it's 50 million, then why aren't you moving for Ugarte, who's only, what is it, just a 5-10 million more, right? So a lot of question marks on that one. But in terms of who I think would flesh out, and that's a good question, and everybody, I get asked a lot. I think this really is hard to sign the first two players, because once you get Alexis in, let's say, and you get the next one, and you get an idea of what you need more. Does that make sense? Like, Obviously, we have our favorites, but I think we can flesh out that more once we get the first one in, and then we're like, okay, cool, we have this kind of player crossed off our list, and now we can focus on a DM or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I would like to come back to this question once we get the first guy in to get a better idea of who we need.
And I think, Evan, the main thing this summer is like we're linked with a whole host of midfielders. You know, everyone's linking us with, you know, every midfielder under the sun, but they're all quality additions. Whether it's a Gravenberch and reigniting his sort of career again at Liverpool, I think he would be a good fit. Mason Mount, we know, needs to leave Chelsea for his betterment going forward. Lavia, you know, if Southampton get relegated. JWP. We know who is, you know,
No, you had to shoehorn him in.
so.
You
But
had to shoehorn him in.
you know, the likes of McAllister, Caicedo, Moby Caicedo. Is that one you think that's just going to be a stretch too far?
I think the price tag will be quite hefty. And you know, there was a really great interview that I read with Paul Barber, who's the CEO of Brighton, and you know, it was a really eye-opening interview because after the whole Caicedo January window, we all thought, well, Bloom and these guys are hardcore knockers. You can't ball with them, and you know they're hard. And the reality is they're not that hard. They were very open in the way they spoke. Paul Barber is like, look, we don't tell players to come and Brighton stand 10 years over there because we know what level we are at. We will sell them. We don't ever stop them from moving on and going where they want to go. All we need is to replace the player before we sell them. That's our only requirement. And that's the only reason they didn't sell Caicedo, because they didn't have a replacement. And that's why McAllister is going, because they have Buonanotte they signed in January, who is ready to fill that in, you know, and jump in. So Caicedo is for sale if you want to pay the money. But and maybe they'll get somebody in the summer to fill that spot. But for us, two players with that much money outlay, I can't see it. Not this summer anyway. I don't think that number fits for what we can get for similar for example from Lavia in a year or so. So I think yeah, it's definitely lower in our list.
Got it. Evan, Caicedo, would he have been your first choice if we could have got him at a good price, maybe like a 60, 70 million? Do you think that Brighton, especially their owner and their, you know, sporting director, they're looking for like 90 million? Is that just a tad too much?
Yeah, I think in the context of this window, given the depth of the build required, given just the sheer scale of the task, and you know, Caicedo just signed that new contract extension as well. I think it could end up being a bridge too far. If potentially we had shored up our midfield a little more in recent windows, and we perhaps only needed 1 to 2 bodies, then absolutely I could see the logic behind spending, you know, 70% of the transfer budget on Moises Caicedo, but I just don't think it's particularly realistic or just doable. And especially Caicedo having so many admirers, we certainly wouldn't be the only club interested. And Klopp has gone on record to say that he wants all the business pretty much done by the time they go off to the preseason camp. So not only could Caicedo end up costing too much, I could potentially see the saga taking too long, as well as multiple clubs get involved, as Brighton try to hold out for higher bids, as things get, you know, messy with agents and things like that. Yeah, so just for a variety of reasons, I don't see it happening. However, if money wasn't an object, I do think he comes close
Great.
to a certain category of midfielder where it's like, yeah, spend the money. You know what I mean? Just spend the money. But he's not quite in that category for me. Phenomenal player though. I would take him any day.
Moby, French league, a particular midfielder. Someone just DM'd me actually. Can you ask Moby about Nice midfielder, legend name Thuram, Kephren Thuram? Anything there, Moby?
Yeah, I think we've been a long time admirer of Captain Turan. You know, his father is not someone that we are not familiar with. I think he's a serious option for us. You know, I'll keep an eye out on that. I think the fee comes pretty close to what everybody else is saying, 60 million, 50 million. L'Equipe the other day printed that it's a 60 million fee that they're wondering or hoping to get. And their owner is English. He's quite familiar with Premier League fees, so I don't think they're going to give us a hefty discount. So the question is, at that fee, who are you taking? Because they're all costing around the same, So again, once we get one or two out of the way, then we'll have a better idea of who really fits us in that price range. And I think we'll be ready to trigger a player of that sort.
Got it. There's a question from Rav Sidhu. Big up, Rav. What does Moby feel is the size of our summer transfer budget? He mentioned earlier 100 million would be a big chunk of it. Moby, I know we're not a club that talks about a specific budget that, I know numbers have been banded about 200 million, 250 we'll spend. I think we'll do business how we see fit. Are you in the same sort of thoughts? I mean, if players become available that we like, we will just, unless it's like a huge fee. I mean, we already feel that we've been priced out of Jude and maybe Caicedo, but if the right player comes along, 40, 50 million, 60 million, that we will pull the trigger.
Yeah, I believe so. We've always been very open about that. If the right player is available, we will move for it. And I think Gakpo was a good example in January. I don't think they had any plans of getting him, but when we realized a lot of clubs were moving for him, PSV had some financial issues, and the numbers really made sense. We moved for him. So I really do think, without thinking about budget and everything, if the player fits and he really is what we need, we will go for it, unless they become ridiculous, like the Jude price tags and everything. I do want to add one more note. I know a lot of the midfielders we're after has been linked. We've talked about a lot of midfielders already. Don't be surprised if there's going to be other players that nobody's ever heard of or anybody's even thought of, because the incoming sporting director has their own list of players that they have eyed, they think is good. So I think a lot of that's going to factor in as we move on into the next month. Beyond the Alexis, which is obviously really advanced at this point, don't be surprised if there's other players that we add in other parts of the squad, other parts of the pitch that nobody's really thinking of right now. So I think that'll be the most interesting part of the summer.
I think we all have fond memories of just waking up to see that Fabinho was only a few hours away from becoming a Liverpool player. Then, of course, another example, Diogo Jota becoming a Liverpool player very, very shortly after being reliably linked. So those are the ones that really get the blood flowing, because obviously we have months and months to talk about McAllister and Ugarte and Caicedo, years even to talk about a certain Jude Bellingham, for better or for worse. But I really like those types of signings, Moby, the ones that just completely come out of left field. And they sort of, in a way, when it's such a surprise like that, it almost forces a more honest conversation about the player.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes sense. So I absolutely like that. I have just a quick question for you, Moby. Obviously, so much has been mentioned about midfielders, and obviously that seems to be the priority position for both the club and for the fan base. But if you had to address another area of the squad with another, maybe not mega signing, but sort of a useful addition, where would you start outside of the midfield?
Yeah, I think right back is probably one where I'd really focus on. I think we've been looking at that for the last windows. Haven't really found anybody suitable. We got a Ramsey in, but obviously he's had injuries and he's not obviously ready for that yet. But I think we'll keep an eye on that. Center back is another one that we have to look at, and I think we will. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody is added in the top. I know we don't really need it, but again, there's a lot of things in flux right now. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a low-cost attacker that comes in and joins in, to take on Bobby's spot, so to speak, or like just an attacking option on the right, because we really don't have anybody except Mo Salah who really covers it. I mean, Harvey can do it, but he hasn't been used there for very often. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that's going to happen on that, and then a couple of youngsters maybe. I mean, Alex Scott is somebody I know we're really interested in. Do we move for him? How much is his price tag? A lot of interesting things that I think I'm going to flesh out as we move on in the next few weeks.
And Moby, just moving away from the midfield section, because we do want to bring you back, and you've given us like an absolute clinic when it comes to midfielder talk, and you've mentioned great names. We will hopefully get you on next week, and there'll probably be another database of 3-4 players that we'll ask you for. Just another quick question on the centre back sort of position. There's been talks of, Josko Gvardiol of Leipzig, but again, prices are going to be a big issue, and Leipzig are very sort of hard and stern when it comes to negotiations. But there is another player at Sporting Lisbon you've mentioned before, Inacio. Have I said that right, Evan? Can you?
Yeah,
Is
Gonzalo
that good?
Inacio. Yeah.
It's one of your better attempts, Abby. We'll
Thank
just
you,
leave it
Evan.
at that.
Inacio Moby is there talk there, Moby, or is that a little bit of paper talk?
No, I think everybody's aware of his release clause, and I think it's too good to pass up. And I think his agent is, the same as Bruno Fernandes, and he's quite familiar with Premier League teams. He's dealt with quite a few of them in the past, and I do believe they're shopping him before the club pushes him to sign a new deal, where they're trying to make it into an 80 million release clause, and he's pushing to make it 70 if he signs it. So I think everybody knows the opportunity here. I think, as I've mentioned before, the wages and the sign-on fees are going to be the kingmaker in these deals if the player wants to move. And I think we have a lot of interest in getting a center back in, given that Matip is leaving next year. So it's a good year for succession planning, if you know what I mean.
Got it.
It's. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Moby.
guys. I just meant to say that I'm actually at the golf course, and I kind of have to go because you guys are waiting on me. But listen, why don't we do another show where I'll come in for a longer segment, maybe hour-long segment if you want, and then we can answer any other questions that people have, or just chat with you guys and have good conversations.
Brilliant, Moby.
Absolutely.
One last question, just one name.
Yeah.
If you had to give a wild card signing that Liverpool may go for this summer, just give us a name. A wild card signing.
I'm not sure if I really want this player, but I think Tielemans is something that I think that on a free, I think the club may look twice or three times or four times, just because a player of that caliber doesn't go for free a lot. And even though he doesn't fit us really in a lot of ways, but he's still a player you can flip down the line again, next year or the year after if he does well, or maybe just sell him for very minimal. You didn't have a big outlay anyway in the first place. So I would say something like that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. I do have some other names that I could throw out, but I think I'm going to keep it close to my chest for now.
No, it's all good.
Maybe I'll open up a little bit more in the next call that we have.
Brilliant. Go and improve on your handicap, and I'll fly over soon enough in the tournament.
Absolutely. And Moby, you gotta come to California. We can teach Avy a thing or two about golf. Let's go to Pebble Beach, man.
I'm down, man. Anytime. I'm always down for a few rounds. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, anytime.
Thank you, Moby.
Nice one, Moby. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, brother.
Everybody else, have a good day. Thank you.
Brilliant. Bye.
Avy, it's after just having that wonderful discussion with Moby again. Thanks to him for making time. On one hand, I feel so great about all the reasonable release clauses there seem to be out there. Ugarte, Inacio. Who was the
McAllister apparently has a release clause of like 50-60 million, but people are saying
there seems to be all sorts of reasonable release clauses that amongst players that Liverpool have a vested interest in. So on one hand, that feels really great, but on the other hand, like we say, you can't activate all of them because it's too much of an outlay of cash too quickly. We'd rather structure it over however many years. And although it's a myth that every release clause has to be paid up front, more often than not, it requires more money than you would have to do if you were doing a traditional structure payment sort of installment deal. So I do hope we do activate one or two release clauses, but to the people who think it's as simple as just doing all of them just because they're all reasonable prices, it's really not that simple, is it?
No, it's not. And when it comes to release clauses, you do have to pay the money bulk up front, and we can't do that. We haven't got the possible even with investment, supposedly coming in, we haven't got the financial muscle of a Chelsea or a Manchester City that can do that, or a PSG even, around world football. Even United probably could do it. Even with the Glazers, we haven't got that kind of money. We don't work like that. But Evan, one thing is I'm excited by all the names. to Tillemans. Moby just put it out there as a wild card signing. My wild card would be James Ward-Prowse. I'm sure you've probably got plenty of wild card signings, and we'll hear it.
Yeah.
But I'm just excited by the names. Kefren Turam can come in, Mason Mount can come in, Romeo Lavia can. Everyone makes an impact.
Can I say, like, although I speak for the fan base when I say that it's super frustrating that we leveraged our future against Jude Bellingham, and it now seems that we're moving on to a different approach in midfield. As frustrating as that was, I suppose the silver lining is that, given that we have such a monstrous task this summer, we're doing it during a summer that seems to be rich in midfield options. And you know how the transfer market works. Sometimes in certain summers, it's light in certain positions. Sometimes you're just in a bad position. You need a left back, but it's a light summer for left backs. Luckily for us, it seems to be we're existing in a rich vein of midfielders. I mean, there's hardly so many linked names being reliably linked at this point. None of them I really have any major issues with. I have my preferences, but like you said, I harbor a bunch of excitement for most of these names.
I just hope that this summer we don't leave ourselves short again. I don't want it to be, if only we had got that player and we would have won the league. If only we had just maybe got a forward in or a centre back in, we would have pushed City or Arsenal all the way. I want us to be, I want us to have real conviction in the transfer market. And whoever comes in, whoever the midfielders are, I'm loving every choice. If Tillemans comes on a free, I think it's smart business. He is 25. I am skeptical about the mileage in his legs already at 25. But hey, for a free transfer, you could, probably you'll make money on him. If you let go.
Yeah. I think Tielemans isn't my cup of tea. I have my own thought process in terms of what qualities are missing from Liverpool's midfield. But as you said, for free, and if he's alongside 2 or 3 other like top quality options, then why not go get a fourth one for free? I absolutely see the wisdom in that. And to the people who were turning their noses up at the idea of Europa League football, I'll tell you what, if you want the size of the transfer window that you're expecting, then you need European football. Because I guarantee you, if Liverpool had missed out on all forms of European football entirely, there's absolutely no way we were going to go get as many midfielders as people wanted, because there's just not enough games. And Klopp and co would be correct in not signing as many players, because how many do you need? But if you have constant trips on Thursday night to, all over the continent, then absolutely you need some more players. So I, for one, am obviously not happy to see us in the Europa League, but I do think some form of European football is necessary for us to kickstart the scale of the rebuild that is required.
Yeah, and obviously me, you, and Moby were on a phone conversation on Tuesday, and I was dead against Europa League football, Europa Conference football. I didn't want it because I said, no, 1 game a week then. I want us to go for the title. I want another league title in the club before he leaves, or, before this team sort of like totally changes, into another phase. But you made me see sense. And you said, listen, okay, then where do the likes of Curtis Jones get game time? Harvey Elliott's? The backup centre backs like Matip and Gomez, if they stay on, or the second choice goalkeepers, the forwards. How is there going to be enough game time if you're only playing once a week? And I don't think we'll make a fist of it in the League Cup, FA Cup, maybe at a stretch. There's not an awful lot of games. So for credit to you, you made me see sense yet again. And I said, no, then yeah, Europa League football, because you're playing around. You expect us to get to the knockout stages. You're playing around 13, 14 games at that point, so that is extra football, and we will need a big squad. I just don't like the big Thursday, Sunday combination, but I don't mind that.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, bit of a collector's item there. Avy admitting I was right. Clip it up.
I always give you your juice. Shut up.
Oh yeah, not really though. I just want to say, I think the real reason you didn't want Europa League before a few days ago is because you were scared at the idea of having to pronounce the names of the teams. We all know the real reason.
The teams in the Europa League are not too bad. It's that conference fucking league. That's the teams where I don't know where we're going. Some teams I thought were based in Australia, but obviously not. I don't have a dumb moment, but some of those teams,
obviously not.
I can't pronounce those. Conference league I want to stay away from. Europa League, that's more my sort of, I can't pronounce those teams, but
Yeah,
guys,
Europa League. It's a bit of it's a bit of Belgium. It's a bit of Netherlands. It's a
yeah.
little more closer to home, where the Conference League seems to just be a tour of the former Soviet bloc. But shout out to everybody who stayed together. Or sorry, stayed with the stream. I know we had those audio issues. I'm sorry that Avy felt he had to get his microphone from Toys R Us, but we got through our
I think
audio
there's only
issues.
one.
And
There's one Toys R Us remaining now. I think in the whole of America. So someone put it up that these the only standing Toys R Us store now. But no,
and
I think there was
Avy and
audio
Avy
issues. I don't know what happened.
was able to find that singular Toys R Us and get a microphone from them.
See,
So shout out to him for.
It's like what Jono says here. Conference League is full of Wi-Fi passwords. They literally are. That Wi-Fi password sticker that you first get with your router, and you just don't know what fucking XYZs and all.
Oh
But,
man, I'm learning so much. Who knew the Belarusian league was a thrill a minute? You know what I mean? So much drama unfolding in
Before we wrap up, two things. Ali, you're gonna do my head in, so I might as well address this. Avi, are you still confident Jude is coming 100%? Yes, I am still confident.
Oh my God,
I'm not
Jude,
reading into the Real Madrid stuff. Fabrizio Romano did a show with me a few months ago and said, put your £500, $500 onto Jude coming to Liverpool. So if he doesn't come to Liverpool, I'm getting I'm gonna get my refund back from Fabrizio. I will fly over to Italy on a private jet to get my money back from Fabrizio Romano.
But Avi, how
I
are
don't
you
want it in
gonna
euros. I don't want
refund-
it in
how-
lira. I want it back in dollars.
How are you going to refund your dear followers who trusted and held on to the coattails of your confidence?
Hey, they love me. Okay, my followers love me. My followers are very loyal to me, even through thick and thin. I know I get a lot wrong, but they stick with me. They stick with me. A quick prediction.
And I know it better than anybody. But anyways.
Quick prediction for tomorrow's game. Forget the lineup. Scoreline. Give me a scoreline.
Oh, that's right. We play football tomorrow. Quick prediction. Okay, so we're at home. We're doing well at home recently. Do Brentford have much to play for at this point? I'm not quite sure. I'm going to say a solid 3-0 Liverpool. Another clean sheet for Alisson. We owe him some clean sheets as a team. I think the Iceman, Diogo Jota's going to come back into the team from his back issue, off the bench maybe. I don't think he'll start, but I think he'll get one. Salah will score another penalty just so he can get his confidence back. And I'm going to say that Cody Gakpo, our signing of the season, will get the third.
I'm gonna go with a 2-1 or a 2-0. I think Brentford will score. I love Thomas Frank.
Stop being so negative. Stop being so negative.
Of course, us to win. I've said that we're gonna win. But ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, whoever tuned in into our show today, loved it. It was great being back. Twins Ball, Daily Gone, give them a follow. Big up, guys. Always in the chat. Ahmed and his brother as well, who's a United fan. Wonderful show, guys. One demand, be regular with ATP. We will try to be regular. I thought before we started we could do this a weekly thing. It is a little bit of a struggle, but we will try to be back. I think we'll be back next week as well, and we'll go on from there. But no, weekly shows 100%. Evan is the guy behind the dynamics, the logistics, the show, everything. So big up to Evan. Evan, where can everyone finds me anyway, flying around Instagram, Twitter, everyone knows who I am, but go and give everyone your intel. Where do we find Soccer God?
So you can find me primarily these days on Twitter at Soccer God. I include it there. Just got to plug myself. I'm constantly having discourse with people familiar to you, like Avy, Moby, and Dave Hendrick, and all those guys. Constantly just having discussions about just Liverpool, all things Liverpool stats, and more. That is the mantra. So that's where you can find me. I'm gonna start doing some short articles, some short think pieces about the impending Liverpool signings when they do sign.
We've missed those short skit videos of you being in front of in your bedroom with the video with your little skits and stuff that you do with player transfers. We've missed that. I've missed that. So yeah, make sure you follow Soccer God's YouTube channel too. I will force him to make videos. You can also catch him mostly on Sundays on GrizzCon TV on the Red Fellas as well. They do a post-match reaction too. And that's it. We're on our way to 5K, ladies and gentlemen. So please make sure you like and subscribe. ATP will be back Tomorrow, I don't think there's a post-match reaction show. We will be back with Red Zone on Sunday. Me, Gene, and Asim. And I think we have maybe Annie back as well on Sunday. So that will be going off at 9 p.m. on Sunday. But apart from that, guys, have a wonderful, safe weekend. I am off and out now. I've got to go and see a house for a viewing. And then I'm going for sushi for dinner tonight, Evan. What's for dinner?
Oh, excellent.
What's
Excellent.
What's on your agenda? Burger King, McDonald's. What's on your?
Bro, no, oh come on! I'm going to Napa. I'm gonna have a nice dinner tonight. Mexican food, I think. But
Nice.
I'll handle the outro, Abby, seeing as
Thank
you botched the intro to the show so conclusively. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Across the Pond.
Love.
We will see you next week.